Hey guys, my name is Eric Braun. I'm the host of the Mortgage Pro podcast. This is another excellent episode. The Mortgage Pro podcast is for mortgage pros, by mortgage pros to make better mortgage pros. So thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, wherever you're listening. Today, we have a special guest, my guy, Ollie from San Diego. We had a great conversation about positioning yourself as an advisor, about branding, about mindset, about how to overcome the rate conversation and rate shoppers. Just a ton of value, as always, is the goal. So I appreciate you tuning in, like I said, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode. All right, today we got my guy Ollie. How are you?
I'm great, Eric. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming on. You're tuning in from the sunny San Diego. Is it sunny today or?
It is absolutely beautiful. So I hope you have great weather in New York. But talk
It's
about
not
all
terrible. It's not terrible.
It looks
Today's
great,
a good
man.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask everybody that's coming on, just so the listeners get a good idea of who you are. Give us your kind of origin story, how long you've been in the business, how'd you get started, maybe where you're from originally. Just give us a quick background on yourself.
Yeah. So I'm first generation. My dad came to my grandfather was able to send my dad over here. He went to UTEP. I was born here, then went back to Iran for like 3 to 4 years. Everything got crazy, moved back. Thank goodness. Love my parents. Thank you for doing that. And then moved back to Texas and then landed in California for like 35 years. So I've seen a lot change in San Diego and got 3 incredible boys, Luke, Connor, and Trevor. They're 17, 15, and Trevor's about to be 13 this month. So love them to death. And it's been an interesting journey. You know, you're on this planet for 40 plus years. You're trying to figure things out. How I ended up in real estate was amazing. I had a lot of people that I went to college with that were lenders. And I always have a passion for math and helping people. So like after I tested out solar, which was interesting, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Let me go into lending. So 2019 became an LOA and learned under one of the good buddies of mine. He was my first mentor, Kelly Klein, and just learn the business the right way. Be a problem solver, invest in people, invest in relationships. And so from the ground up, I kind of build my own way of taking care of people. And I don't do loans. I'm a mortgage advisor. So if somebody wants advice on like a 30-year strategy to change their lives, that's what I'm all about. If you want someone to do your loan, there's plenty of companies that do that. I just think that advisors really have, and that's why I respect you so much. Like we have a huge role to play in changing lives. So I just take that really, really seriously. And I just want to show my boys, like invest in people and you'll always win.
That's awesome. So you've been in the business 4 years, right?
Wow. Yeah.
What was the transition? So how long were you in LOA? And like, did you at some point make a plunge into going all out on your own or?
Yeah. So I started off at a direct lender. And I think that's a great way if you're new to the business, go to a direct lender. They have a lot of tools and systems and, hopefully they provide you leads. I wasn't in one of those direct lenders, but what ended up happening is I started April of 2019, was studying and just doing the LOA role. I passed my license the first time in September of 2019. And it was all refis. I just reached out to my database, did a whole bunch of refinances. I was very fortunate because from my prior industry, I had great relationships. Right. So I did have a bit of a database, but then 2020, I learned, I'm like, okay, so if I rely on refinances, it's not going to be like this forever. I got to become a purchase advisor. So how do I change, who I am, what my branding is, and really start focusing on purchase business? Because if I want to stay long-term, I can't rely on refinances. That's not working hard. That's just basically connecting with people and solving a need. So thank goodness I learned the purchase business. I was able to stick around and, that's how I got started. I would say a lot of, the biggest gap I see is like a lot of people don't want to spend the time to mentor. Mm-hmm. And now I know that you got to pay to play. So if someone says to you, hey, I'm going to teach you what I did, and it cost 10,000. Figure out the way to come up with 10,000 and go learn from someone that really, really has their best interests in mind. Do your homework, interview people. That's how you really, really surround yourself with high caliber people and learn.
Right. So transitioning from, I was just having this conversation the other day, how like I didn't have a big database during the refi boom. I was in the business for maybe a year or two while I got in the business and I started out as a telemarketer, harps and FHA streamlines. That's how I got started. And then as rates started to go up, that business started to dry up a little bit. And then everything also came back down and there was like this big refi boom. At that moment in my career, it's not like I had a huge past client database that I could refi.
Right.
Like I wasn't purchase heavy. I wasn't in the business for a long time. So I've always naturally, aside from my first year or two in the business telemarketing, I always gravitated towards building a purchase business. And I think you can ask anybody, that's the way to go, because building a purchase business, I still did refis. and building a purchase business is going to help me in the next refi wave. So I think, and no matter what the market does, there's always the purchase business to kind of, focus on. So I couldn't agree more with that. When you first initially, maybe there's somebody listening right now. I always try to think about where somebody may be at so we can add the most value to them. There may be somebody listening right now that was a refi guy or refi girl, right? And that was their business model. And now rates are at 7% or 7.25% or wherever they are. And they're trying to get into this purchase business. What would you say to those people? Maybe the first few steps that they can take that will help them make that transition.
I think that's a phenomenal question. Here, what I would say, if you approach an agent, and you really don't have a reputation for purchase business, how are you going to differentiate yourself? Like, what's your story? What unique value proposition are you going to bring to them that's different than everybody else? Because if you can close on time and you communicate and you work weekends, you're just basically doing your job. So that to me isn't really value. I'm a huge Alex Hormozi guy. So I believe in his philosophy in regards to, like, I think he's one of the premier thought leaders right now of our time. And if you're not following him, you're really missing out on a lot of value proposition that you can bring people. So for me, I prioritize people. That's my biggest advice. Like, figure out who you are and what problem you can solve for people. And then put that stuff, record content, record video, just put that stuff out there. And even if it's terrible, just keep doing it. Just keep singing your message. Just keep reinforcing what means to you, what's important. I'm not very transaction based, so I don't speak that way. I talk about people. I talk about stories, and I don't preach at people. It's like, hey, from my experience, I've learned this. So I think if you really, really dive in on who you are and what unique differentiators you have, you'll find the right audience, and they go and connect with as many people. Social media, in-person meetings, Zooms. Do whatever you need to do to meet more people. I think right now, hand-to-hand combat is probably the most important thing in building more relationships.
A few things with that. Do you like Alex Hormozi because he's Iranian?
Not at all. Not at all.
I'm just kidding.
That's great that you bring that up. Like, I look at people as people. Like, I either think you're a quality person or you're not. I really care less about anything else.
I'm going to tell you right now, I've learned so much from that guy. Some of it doesn't apply perfectly to our business. And it's just really interesting stuff. And I enjoy business in general. So I kind of veg out listening to his stuff sometimes, but he's awesome. I saw that you just purchased his book, his new book, and you got the hat. I have it in my box right by my door right now. I haven't opened it up, so I'm with you right there on Alex. I'm a complete fanboy of his. A friend of mine actually did some work with him, and hung out with him backstage, and like has pictures with him and talks to him through Instagram. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little jealous.
I'm gonna get him on the podcast, man. So
Yeah,
you're gonna have to fly to San Diego and come on the podcast. So you're gonna have to
I
make an
will.
excuse.
I will 100% make it out there for that.
So I actually have a business proposition for you. Do you want to pick
Right.
up more business than you can ever imagine? Come to San Diego and join one of our branding events. You'll connect with more lenders than you ever have. Nobody can do loans in New York, so it's all good.
So, and we were just talking about that. Well, I want to mention one more thing before we transition to that because it's important. Uh, the value proposition thing. I've preached that for many years now. I think sometimes it's used. I think some realtors, now that it's become like a thing and a standard, like here's my value proposition to you as my referral partner. Sometimes it's like, okay, but are you good at your job? Right. And there has to be both, clearly. But let's dive into value proposition, because I would assume that the people listening to this, they're working on their craft. If you're listening to a mortgage specific podcast, you're probably decent at your job, or at least you're working towards it, right? So let's pretend like that's the case. You're good at your job.
Done deal.
What is your value proposition to your referral partners?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's taken a long time to finally come up with a relationship. And okay, I think the biggest thing that mortgage advisors and lenders fail at is really building relationships and making their partners look amazing. So that to me is number one. Like, I really want to understand how they operate their business, go work open houses, get my hands dirty. I'm not your average mortgage advisor. I go out and get dirty, because the reality is they want partners that are partners. They don't want someone that's just sitting behind the desk doing loans. Anybody can do that. Great. You sit behind, I go out there, prospect, generate the lead, which is the hardest thing to get, in my opinion, and earn the relationship. So I like to go and see them in their element, because not every agent is right for me. So I don't try to get everyone. I try to go people that are relationship based. Then we connect, and then the value proposition is much more impactful. So
Right.
to me, the value proposition has nothing to do with what I offer them. It really has to do with the relationship and what we can offer each other, because we're on the same page. The person that's ultimately going to win is the family that we're supposed to help, the investor that we're supposed to help. I care more about our fiduciary responsibility to the end user, because they have a 5-star experience. Then you know what? We all win. And then
Right.
they get their circle to say, hey, you know what? I just had the best real estate experience ever. These people actually talk together. Holy moly. What an incredible experience where the lender and the mortgage advisor and real estate agent communicate, and we all are on the same page. So it blew me away. Like, Eric, when I first started and I asked first time home buyers, like, how was your experience when you bought your house? When I was doing refinances, like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, it wasn't very good. That was shocking to me. It's like, you're buying your first home. How important is it that you have a great experience? I would think that it means everything. So that's really where my passion comes from. Like, I really want to change the standard for mortgage advisors. And I think you're a champion of that too.
Well, I appreciate that. We were talking about how before we started rolling here, how over time we've talked for multiple years, and if you ever ran into a customer in New York, you'd think of me. And I think that's one of the byproducts of social media that we don't necessarily talk about too much in our business. Like, yeah, I put out content. Hopefully a customer reaches out to me. I put out content. Local realtors start to know who I am. One of the byproducts that I've seen from social media over the years is, especially because of the state that I'm in, I get referrals from loan officers all the time that aren't licensed in New York. Their company isn't licensed in New York. So it's and that was never the goal, by the way. But it's a pretty cool byproduct. So let's shift gears into social media.
Sure.
I know you've been on your content game for a little bit now. You have your own show. Why don't you give us your media strategy and maybe some of the results that you've seen from it?
Okay. So this year, I finally realized how inconsistent I was in regards to, so I would record and I would take pictures. I would do all the things that you need to do to build your brand. I just wouldn't post it. I had imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm in San Diego. There's a lot of hitters over here. I'm like, why would anyone listen to me? Then I realized something. It doesn't matter. I heard this from, I wish I could remember who it was. They're like, it doesn't matter how great you are if no one knows about it. I'm like, felt pretty stupid at that moment because I'm like, you know what? So I do all these things. I make sure like all my families, I know them by first name. I know them. I know their portfolio. I know everything that's going on. I'm honored. They call me their money person because I genuinely care. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do things differently now. Now I'm just going to talk about, I've learned from my experience, and really talk, instead of talking at people, talk to people. So my branding has really changed in the sense that I just want to tell my story, be consistent about it. And I'm going to go on a content multiplier where I'm posting consistently on the platforms that really I think my audience is at, and just be true to my voice, and talk about like the difference that I want to make in people, the experience that I want to provide. And I figure I'll get enough people to want to work with me, connect with me. And I don't really care about the business. I just care about making a difference that, hey, I talked to Ollie and I might not have been right for him, but maybe I can connect him to another advisor that's much, much better suited for them. So I just think if there was less greed, more focused on relationships, we'd all win. There's more than enough business for everybody. So I'm really becoming a champion of promoting advisors that genuinely are relationship-based, care, and want to help people build a long-term strategy towards legacy and financial freedom. So that's become my new like passion for this year. So all the adjustments I'm making on my brand are built on that.
And I think what you're also talking about naturally is authenticity. Like you're just going to tell your story and people are going to be attracted to that. I think that's one of the things that are missing. That's missed. Like when I see somebody that's creating content and it's good topics and they're consistent and they're posting regularly and they're not getting results, sometimes the piece that's missing for me and what I think is missing from their strategy is being authentic. I know it's kind of like this, like, almost like spiritual topic. It starts to be a little bit fluff, like a little bit of fluff. But I think what we have to remember is social media, like the key to success on it is connecting with people. Like you can have the best topic, the best hook, if you're not connecting, you're not going to see results. And I think the people who are the most successful on social media are the most authentic, especially at a micro, like local level. And I think you're a shining example of that. And I think the business and social media is so much more enjoyable when you take that approach and mindset, that you kill two birds with one stone. You're successful and you also are enjoying it more, which is important. Just like picking the right referral partners versus picking everybody, trying to market to everybody. So I love the mindset behind it, and also the advisor approach that you mentioned a few times. Why don't you dive into how specifically, like maybe when communicating with a client, how you're positioning yourself as an advisor, not just the mortgage guy?
You got it. Okay. So cool story. In the past 3 days, I've gotten 3 calls from 2 people that are under contract, and their current lender did not update them what was going on with interest rates. And they're in new construction. So all the terms of their loans have changed now because rates are a lot different than when they got under contract. So having to step in and solve those problems instead of like, hey, there's all these things have gone wrong. I just really listen. I want to take the time to get to know the person before you start trying to solve problems. Mm-hmm. You got to take the time to listen to people. And that's the biggest thing I've worked on this year is shut up, listen to what people have to say, ask more questions, really engage them. And I wasn't trying to earn their business. I was just trying to figure out where their problem was so I could solve it.
Right.
The cool thing is once I did that, both of them decided that they're going to go work with our team, versus what their current lender is. And I don't care about the money. I told one of them, I said, you seem like your life is in chaos right now because of this. She's like, you don't even know how stressed out I am that I'm going to lose my $10,000 earnest money. I said, hold on. No matter what we got to do, even if we got to make no margins on this, we'll figure out a way to make this work for you. So, and it took 24 hours because I don't want to make empty promises to people. And we figured it out. At the end of the day, I'm honored. I genuinely am that they trusted me enough to give me an opportunity to really listen to them. So my advice is you really want to be a mortgage advisor versus someone that just does loans. Take the time to really connect with people and figure out what their problem is. Because if you don't, you can't solve shit.
Right. I think we just had, so we do a weekly huddle in our organization, and we were talking about how, a lot of clients, they'll come to you and the first question out of their mouth is like, what's your interest rate? We get it. Right. Everybody on this call everybody who's listening to this has got that call. And you're doing a disservice if you just give an answer immediately. Now I'm not saying hide information either, because I think that puts a bad taste in people's mouth. They can tell that you're like trying to avoid the question. So our mindset is let them know where the market is, but then immediately shift into, well, what do you do for work? And how much do you make? Because if you're below a certain point on your income, we can get an AMI, LLPA waiver. Or what's your credit score? How much other debt do you have? Should we be talking about an FHA loan or a conventional loan? Right. And if you take that professional approach of fact finding and questions, and the second layer of questions and the third layer of questions, what ultimately ends up happening is you spend 20 minutes on the phone with them and they start to understand why you're the professional, and they start to, the feedback that I'm really looking for after that initial call is, wow, I learned more from this 20-minute phone call than I ever did working with the person I've been pre-approved with for 6 months. When I get that feedback, I know for me, that's a client. Like I won that business. Now, of course, and then I'll always end with, we got to make sure the numbers make sense too. And I understand your job is to get the best deal, and my job is to give you the best deal. So I'm not saying price doesn't matter, because a lot of people take that approach as well. It's a combination of giving proper advice, being a professional, earning that respect, and allowing them to understand that it's a little bit more complicated than rate, right? Give you a perfect example. Like I'm speaking to a client, we're going over everything, and to do 5% down plus closing cost, they don't really have enough to do 5% down plus closing costs. Plus they have a 660 credit score. Why did your lender pre-approve you for conventional when you're 10 grand short? Why don't we do an FHA loan? The payment overall is pretty much the same because the MI is better, the rate's better, et cetera. And that's like the perfect, classic scenario, right? Of not only is it just rate, it's also program. So I think that advisor's mindset and approach is the only way to do our business. Otherwise, you're in a different business almost if you start getting into the rate game. You might as well work at a credit union or be a teller at a bank or something, which I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but that's the line that you're towing.
Eric, I have a question for you. So when we get commoditized, okay, so there is a huge difference. I don't look at loan officers and mortgage advisors the same way. Mortgage advisor to me is someone that's really advising your strategy. They're taking the time to get to know you. When you go to the bank and you apply for a mortgage, they're just showing you a loan. They're not helping your particular family figure out the solution. And the way I look at it like this, okay, so I go and save a 1/8 or a 1/4% on the rate. I go to a credit union. Awesome. What did they do for you? They gave you a loan. With the solutions that you've come up with, people, how many thousands of dollars have you saved them? over the years with your advice and your strategies?
Hundreds of thousands.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so the analogy that I like to give to a lot of families that I help and investors is, are you focused on the long game or are you focused on the short game? Yes, you're right. You're going to find a cheaper rate somewhere else, but are you going to find the same level of service, the same level of experience? Hey, Eric, I answer my phone at 9 p.m. on a Saturday when we're under contract. Call a bank and see if they answer your call at 9 p.m. on a Saturday when they're with their family on vacation. I genuinely give a shit. And the whole point is, when you're under contract, you tell me, how competitive is New York with timelines on closing?
Not much compared to other states, but I get your point. Yeah.
We have 17-day closes, my man.
Yeah, no.
Like, do you really think a credit union cares whether you got to close in 17 days?
Yeah. In New York, we do what's called, and this is actually bizarre for a lot of out-of-state loan officers and realtors and real estate professionals in general. We have what's called, we're an attorney state. So every transaction, parties need to be represented by an attorney, buyer and seller. And we have what's called a on or about date. So the closing is on or about October 30th.
Okay.
On or about means both parties have up until 30 days after that date to close, but they can also close before then. So it's a very like weird, like you're trying to time it with both sides and stuff like that. There's some pros, but I 100% get what you're saying. Like, speaking to a bank at 9 o'clock at night is just not going to happen. And listen, like, as much as we want to be advisors and give sound advice, like, availability is also a big part of our value proposition. I know for me, like, do I think that's to the top of the list? Depending on the scenario, like some scenarios, like you need, especially in this market, you need to be available, and that's a huge value to your clients. But yeah, that's now shit. Like, at the same time though, I don't know if I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes you have clients that you speak to at 9 o'clock on a Saturday for an hour, and you put together a whole solution for them, and they still want to work with, somebody with the absolute lowest rate. I don't know if that's ever been your experience.
I do. Okay. So here's my thing. I would much rather, I have literally bent over backwards to earn business that wasn't mine. I never earned, the relationship didn't connect. So the way I look at it is this: yes, I can do that loan for them and I can bring them to the finish line. Are they going to have the best experience, and are they going to leave a 5-star review because I gave them a 5-star service? If the answer is no, I much rather connect them with, like, hey, here's Eric. I think you guys are going to connect better. So right now, I'm actually connecting with a ton of mortgage advisors, because the way I look at it is all real estate agents are out there connecting throughout the US. How many advisors are doing that? So now anybody that sees this, that's going to want to move to New York, is going to say, hey, holy smokes, what a cool thing. Like Eric talked with Ollie. Now I have a referral there. So family and friends. So I think the power of social media has become, like, we could take relationship-based sales professionals, whatever the industry, and that's how we get our message out, and quality works with quality. I'm not right for everyone. I know that, and it's okay. So I'd much rather the person have a great experience. And Eric, you know what the funny thing is? Because I didn't do business with them, I've gotten referrals from them that said, hey, you didn't do my loan, but I love the way you took care of me. So here's my friend. All good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm honored that they would refer us. I think that's the one component I've really taken to heart now. Like, when someone refers you, have an immense amount of gratitude, because they don't have to do that.
Right. And I think it's so important to mention that not every client's for us. Yep. Not every client's for us. And it's hard, especially in this market when there's less loans to go around, to lose something. But I think what we should all be focused on, and what I focus my time and energy on, is making sure that more people are coming through the door, not focusing on the one client that I didn't connect with or lost. That's if you can solve the clients coming through the door problem, you can lose a few.
Yep.
Again, it's harder in this market to lose a few because let's say you're doing, 2, 3, 4, 5 loans a month. You lose one, that's 25%, that's 30%, that's, so it's 50% if you're doing 2 loans a month. So yeah, I think, but it is important to remember that in those moments, because we can easily get down on ourselves, which I would love to talk about some more, because I really dove into like the emotional side of this business, because I think it's very tough. What do you do?
Let's talk about it, bro. This has been the hardest year I've ever had in lending.
What do you do? What do you do to stay positive? What do you do to maybe during those bad days or bad moments? Like what do you do to make sure that your mind stays in the right place?
You know what? I've been I had to change a couple of things really with my mindset. I got in such a dark place this year because this is the first year I've ever struggled from, as an advisor. They're just transaction, especially in California. I mean, New York, you can relate. Our home prices are very, very different than other markets. Very, very different. So when you're I don't believe I need to convince anyone to buy a house. I think that's their decision. So I never take that approach. And it's hard for me to tell someone, hey, you're making 35 grand a month and your mortgage is going to be 12 grand a month. Well, you're really not making 35 grand a month. That's just your gross. So if they're not in a great financial situation, I don't believe in forcing people to make decisions that aren't in their best interest. And I think that's the thing that you struggle with. It's so easy to say focus on your internal greed versus what's doing right with people. So now I'm like, okay, so if my issue is I don't have enough connections, I don't have enough relationships, what do I do to solve that problem? So I started studying more. How do I become a better brand marketer? How do I start working on my branding? How do I start to really, really dial in on my value proposition? How do I reinvest in my relationships that really, really they care about me and their actions show that I care about them? So it's vice versa. Like that's what I started doing, was focusing on the action. What is it that I need to do every single day to make a difference for people, knowing full well, as long as I stick with it, I keep pushing forward every day. Don't overthink, just take the action. Because I'm a perfectionist, so I slow myself down all the time. So now I just come up with like 3 ideas. As long as I accomplish those 3 things, connect and follow up with my relationships, I know it's going to work out. And Eric, in the past 6 weeks, I've gotten almost a lead every day.
Right.
It's shocking. I focus on the action. I just stay positive, working out, being around positive people. It's made all the difference in the world. So I would say if you're in a dark place, by all means, reach out to me, hit Eric up. And there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help. There's a lot of tools. You just got to go look.
100%. And if you are, struggling with mindset and staying positive, I did record my first solo episode for the Mortgage Pro podcast. If you scroll back, I forgot what number episode it was. But it's about mindset. So listen to that. I think it's 20 minutes. Make sure that you guys listen to that. But Ali, all the things that you just said are right on the money, right? Like we cannot control what rates do and what the condition of the market conditions are.
Bro, I started to doubt my own skill set. I'm like, am I messing up? Have I completely forgot how to be an advisor? So right. There's a lot of doubt that creeps in, and it's not easy, especially in our industry when you're accustomed to a certain, level of results. And all of a sudden that goes down by 50. I mean, that's why I have so much respect for real estate professionals. For all the people out there, there's so many incredible people that work real estate. They're all relationship based. So Eric, I've become a champion for that. Whether you're an agent, if you're in the business, you're an advisor, even in California, Brandon Goldberg, let's talk about him. I promote him. We don't work at the same company. I have no reason to promote someone that's in San Diego, a competitor, but he's a great guy. He cares about people. And how many people can I help? So I think that's what we got to do as real estate professional, start becoming advocates for one another. And I think we're going to grow our sphere working in collaboration versus division.
Right. 100%. I think we're stronger together. And let's be honest, like our competition really isn't each other. It's it's the bigger guys. Like I'd
It's
rather
the retail.
focus,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
retail.
I would rather focus on, let's put Rocket Mortgage out of business. Or
Seriously.
I shouldn't say Rocket Mortgage. I didn't mean to say that. I meant Torpedo Mortgage. So I don't mention their name.
Whatever that company is called.
Yeah, whatever it's called. So I really enjoyed this conversation, man. I think you're a shining example of like authenticity and being a consultant and really caring. That's what it comes down to. I think a good mortgage professional, a good real estate professional, a good business owner in general just cares. And I always say, like, that's the bar of entry in our organization, is you really have to care. And we are not going to lower that standard. That's a bare minimum. You can be great at your job, bad at your job. First and foremost, you have to care. You have to be a good person. And like I said, you're a shining example of that. So I appreciate your time today. Any final thoughts for the people listening today?
Absolutely. So since this your podcast is focused on advisors, guys, follow Eric Braun. Like, not your average lender. It really not Eric, I'll give you a compliment. You're one of the influencers I started following when I got in the business. I heard a lot about you. It's authenticity, it's the way you bring all your events. You're so easy to talk to. And if you reach out to him, just see how quickly he gets back to you. I think that, to me, reach out and follow your brand model. It's worked. It's worked. You build a lot of great relationships. I can't imagine how competitive it is in New York. You got all the Sirhants of the world. You're in the Mecca of real estate when it comes to that. So I just really appreciate your message. I appreciate the time on there. And I'm giving you an invite. When you come to San Diego, we'll have you in the studio live. That way we can interview you and introduce everybody in San Diego to Eric Braun.
And we'll bring Hormozi too.
Oh, that's hey man. When Hormozi finally comes into the studio, you'll be getting an invite. You'll have to fly out just to meet him.
I appreciate your time, Ollie. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
You too, man. Thank you.
Later.
Peace out.